Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. For today's video I'm going to go slightly off piste because I'm going to invite you to join me in a readathon in November. So I've taken part in a couple of readathons in the booktube and wider book community in the last year or 18 months, and if I'm honest I have had mixed results with them, some good experiences, some not so good experiences. But in November I'm going to be taking part in Once Upon a Readathon, and not only will I be taking part, this will be the first time that I've helped by actually being one of the co-hosts of the readathon itself. So I'm inviting you to come and join me in a readathon in November, read some good books as you would normally be doing in any given month, but to also use those books to count towards a team goal. I will leave various links in the description box below this video. First of all, to our host Hannah Blackwell, who is running this readathon. She has dreamt this up. She's put a massive amount of work into getting it off the ground, putting together various prompts, graphics, FAQs, and pulling together as well 16 different co-hosts who are going to be heading up the 5 teams across this readathon. I won't go into all of the individual hosts because they will be linked in the video, which I'm going to put in the cards there as well as in the description box below, and in that introductory video from Hannah, as well as information on all of the individual co-hosts that are helping out with this readathon. You can also find the full details, so the background behind the readathon and the full in-depth instructions on how to join and how to participate. For this video today, I'm going to go through some of the basic steps. I'm going to introduce the co-hosts who are on my particular team, and I'm going to give some very loose recommendations for some of the prompts that you'll find in this readathon. So first of all, as you can perhaps tell by the name, Once Upon a Readathon, this is a readathon that is focused or based on or set on, or however you want to phrase it, but it's looking at retellings, whether it's fairy tales, folklore, mythology, you name it. Now you might ask, what am I, a reader of epic fantasy, doing in such a readathon? And quite simply, it sounds fun, and I was invited and I was happy to take part in this particular readathon because, like most readathons, although there are various prompts and although there is an overall theme, you're not restricted in the books that you can and can't read for this particular readathon. So although you'll see lots of fairy tale stuff and there'll be loads of fairy tale retellings being read as part of this readathon, I'm sure you do not have to actually read any retellings yourself if you don't want to. So I mentioned some teams and various different co-hosts, and that's going to be your first stop as you join this readathon, because you need to declare the team that you want to participate with and you want your points to go towards. There are 5 teams, each with 3 or 4 different co-hosts, and the booktube channel for every single co-host taking part and helping out with this readathon is listed in that introductory video by Hannah that I have linked in the description box below this one. So with the 5 teams that you can declare for, you can choose between the princesses, the witches, the fairy godmothers, the wolves, and my team is the huntsmen. So I'm going to be joined by Ben from Overly Average Ben and Bryce from Shelf Centered, and together the 3 of us are your team captains, if you like, for the huntsmen. So also below this video I'm going to put a couple of links to a Google Drive with loads of documents and graphics, the FAQ and so forth, and the first thing that you're going to want to do is to sign up for the readathon. There is also a Discord server where you can come and join in the fun and chat with everybody who's involved, including your team's own private channel where you can discuss the books and the various prompts, get any help that you need from your teammates and your team captains, and of course just be a part of the community, which is the single greatest thing I think about these readathons. Once Upon a Readathon runs from the 1st to the 30th of November 2022 based on your specific time wherever you are in the world. So you can go and sign up now and get everything ready nice and early before the 1st of November, and then in November there are 5 steps for you to complete with the books that you read. Each of these steps has various prompts within it. You can complete just one of them, you can complete all of them, you can read 3 different books for 3 different prompts, or you can read one book that covers multiple prompts in there. But once you've completed the first step, you can move on to the second step. So you do need to complete these steps in order, but by and large that's the only real restriction on the reading itself. So referring to the handy little graphics that I've got loaded on my Kindle, the steps that you need to complete throughout this readathon are to research the history of the apple tree, find a map to the apple tree, gather companions for your quest, undertake the quest itself, and then to climb the apple tree. There are also 2 impromptu challenges during the course of the month as well, which will be announced at the time and are additional steps for you to complete. So to give you an idea of how non-restrictive these prompts are, I'm going to run through each of the individual steps. Each of the 5 steps has 3 prompts, and there's also for the third prompt a hard mode as well. So you get 100 points per prompt and an extra 50 points for completing the final prompt in hard mode, giving you a maximum of 350 points per step, and that's regardless of how many books you read. So for the first step, research the history of the apple tree, you need to read a book featuring royalty, a retelling, whether that's fairy tale, folk or myth, and a title that includes one of the following words: once, upon, a time. Hard mode for that would be to read a title that includes 2 of those words. And this is one that's really easy to complete for someone who reads fantasy, because so many fantasy books heavily feature royalty, and the same with retellings. There's a lot of royalty featured within those. You will also find with a lot of retellings that they do have subtitles that include once upon a. So that does give you a lot of good options for completing not only the third prompt, but for doing so in hard mode. Some of the titles I've read recently that would nicely tick off some of those prompts: A Touch of Light and the prequel novella A Prelude to Ashes by Thiago Abdallah, The Look of a King by Tom Dumbrell, the entire Of Blood and Bone series by John Gwynne there, A Time Of, and then you've got Dread, Blood and Courage in the titles. If you want to go into sci-fi, you've got Sleep in a Sea of Stars, Children of Time, This Is How You Lose the Time War. So there are loads of opportunities to complete this step in 1 or 2 books. Next, you've got, for me, what is the absolute easiest of all of these steps as a reader of epic fantasy. Find the map to the apple tree, for which you need to read a book with a map, a book that you recently acquired, and that's down to your judgment depending on how often you purchase books, and a book with red, orange, yellow or brown on the cover. And the hard mode for that, again, similar to the first step, read a book with 2 of those colours on the cover. Another one with some very easy prompts is step 3, gather companions, for which you need to read a book with romance. You need to read a book featuring family, and you need to read a new to you author, an author you've not read before. For hard mode, that would be a debut author. So again, something really easy. One of the favourite books I've read recently, which I know a lot of people are going to be reading as my finalist pick for SPFB08, is Fire of the Forebears, which happily ticks off all of these prompts. Step 4 is the quest for the apple tree, for which you need a book with magic, which again is really nice and easy for a reader of fantasy. A book with a historical setting, so for my particular taste in fantasy, that's maybe a little bit more difficult, but really not that much. And then the third prompt is a book over 300 pages, with hard mode being a book over 450 pages. So once again, if you've seen the books around me, that's going to be dead easy for me. My average for the year is over 500 pages, and I know lots of my readers who read similar types of books will have no problem with this one whatsoever. And then the 5th and final step is to climb the apple tree, and this one might give people a little more difficulty depending on how you look at it, but for me, a lot of this is down to individual judgment. You need a book featuring conflict. So again, reading epic fantasy, pretty much every book, let alone epic fantasy actually, has some conflict in it as one of the key driving factors. So that one should be pretty easy. You've then got a poll pick, which is again nice and easy. There's a section on the Discord server for this as well if you want to utilise it for that. You put out a series of books that you're interested in, and then people vote on which one they want you to read. If you're someone like me and you already have a mechanism in place for that, you can use that. So I have each month a TBR pick that my patrons help me with, and they will be helping me to complete this particular prompt. And then for the final prompt, you've got a book with an unlikable or a morally grey character, and for hard mode, that would be a book with the villain featuring as the main character. So this is one that may be a little bit more difficult for people to find, but again, it's a case of judgment, because so many books, especially in fantasy recently, have morally grey or unlikable characters, and there are plenty as well that do have villains as the main characters. It's just a matter of judgment and how you look at them. Some of the ones again that I've read recently or I'm looking to read, you've got Beyond Redemption by Michael R. Fletcher, which I know a couple of people are quite eager for me to try out. The Maleficent 7 by Cameron Johnson is full of villains as the main characters there. And then you've got titles like The Lies of Locke Lamora, where you've got a group of thieves. They are technically the villains. The Poppy War, Prince of Thorns, there are loads of books like these where they have very, very unlikable main characters who you could definitely look at as being the villains. So plenty of options, but you might just need to put a little bit of extra thought into the particular book that you're choosing for this one. Now, going back to the start, and the overall kind of theme for this readathon is retellings, and for this one I said for epic fantasy readers that might sound like something that you can't really do, but you absolutely can. And again, it depends on how you're looking at it, how close a retelling it is, and so forth. So for instance, you've got books that I know a lot of fantasy readers enjoy by Naomi Novik. Spinning Silver and Uprooted are both retellings or based on fairy tales and folklore. You've then got some of the more obvious ones like Cinder and Cursed, for which I absolutely love the colours on one of the available covers. And then you've got your Norse mythology, and although they're not retellings, you've got things like The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne, which are absolutely steeped in Norse mythology. So plenty of options for you to choose from, a really nice, straightforward, relaxed, enjoyable readathon that I'm looking forward to in November. I hope some of you will come and join me, and I hope some of you will go a little step further and come and join Ben, Bryce and myself in the Huntsmen team. So that's my little introduction to Once Upon a Readathon for November 2022. As I said, there'll be some links in the description box below this video to the channels for Bryce, Ben and Hannah, to the Google Drive with all of the Once Upon a Readathon information, and specifically to Hannah's introductory video where she goes through the process, the prompts, the points in a lot more detail. Also down there you'll find all of my social media links if you want to connect with me on Twitter, Instagram or Goodreads, and there's my support the channel links including my book club Discord and my Patreon. I hope to see you in another video sometime soon, but until then, as always, take care of yourselves, read some good books. Bye for now.